A still photo of an adult sitting at a table with two preschool-age children in an early childcare setting, playing with picture and number cards. A graphic title below the photo reads, Understanding Unique Aspects of Dual Language Development. The photo then becomes live video. English embedded captions appear on screen throughout the video.
Okay, you'll be Miss Tessie.
Yeah.
Okay, help her, okay?
The adult walks away, leaving the two children to play together. The voiceover is identified as Elizabeth Crocker.
There are so many academic advantages to speaking more than one language.
4. Okay, ¿dónde va? Aquí. Es 4. Aquí.
Elizabeth Crocker appears on screen in an early childhood education setting.
Speaking more than one language increases the plasticity of the brain and makes it easier for the children to grasp other hard concepts because they know there's more than one way.
Several children sit around a table, each drawing on paper with colored pens.
A typical feature of dual language development is code switching.
The voiceover is identified as Linda Espinosa, followed by voiceover and on-screen appearance of Catherine Sandhofer, Ph.D., seen in an office setting and identified as Associate Professor, Developmental Psychology, University of California, Los Angeles.
Code switching is alternating back and forth between two or more languages, either phrases or words, within the same conversational turn or the same sentence. It's something that should be accepted as part of bilingual language development.
Two preschool-age children in an early childcare setting play together at a table with printed sheets of numbers and stacks of colored plastic rings.
What was your question, Melanie? Which is small or which is more?
I said more.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Which is more? ¿Cuál es more? ¿Cuál es más? 10 or 8? Okay. ¿Cuál es poquito?
If you watch preschool children code switch, they don't do it with everyone. They only do it with people who speak both of the languages. So when they're code switching English and Spanish, they're only code switching in front of other English and Spanish speakers.
Dr. Sandhofer reappears on screen.
So one, they're monitoring who speaks what language, and they're able to do that. Second thing they're doing is they're keeping the rules and the phonology of their two languages separate. So even though they might be intermixing the languages, they keep the grammatical rules of separate phrases intact.
The speaker, Barbara Conboy, is seated in an office setting.
The other difference that we found between the bilingual children in that study and then previous studies of monolingual children was that we saw a different distribution of these effects in the brain. The children were just sitting there and listening to words in English, words in Spanish. There were words that were randomly switching between the two languages.
A close-up of a printed report by Barbara Conboy and Deborah Mills entitled Fast Track Report, 2 Languages, 1 Developing Brain, Event-Related Potentials to Words in Bilingual Toddlers. On-screen text highlights an excerpt from the report and reads, The comparisons between bilingual and monolingual children also suggest that a bilingual learning environment may give rise to patterns of neural activity that are qualitatively different from those found in monolingual development. Conboy and Mills, 2006.
What we did think was happening was that their brains had to perhaps use a different cognitive process or strategy than the monolingual brain would have to do just listening to one language. In other words, when the brain is hearing languages switching back and forth between English and Spanish, it's doing something different from when it's only hearing one language at a time.
A child in a preschool classroom arranges 10 cutouts of red apples next to a number 10 on a whiteboard.
We have evidence now that the child growing up bilingually seems to be better at things like attentional monitoring, particular attentional and executive function skills, than children growing up monolingually. The brain becomes good at alternating between languages and switching between those.
An adult reads to a child in an early education setting.
A missing cookie isn't funny. It must have been the...
and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I'm gonna take this one away. Flapping to blue heaven.
Dr. Sandhofer is heard and reappears on screen.
But when you look at both of their languages in combination, then what you see is their vocabulary is at least as large, if not larger, than their same age classmates. So when you're assessing a dual language learner, you want to consider their vocabulary in both their languages, not just one. And what's interesting is there's going to be sometimes overlap between the words they know, but sometimes not overlap as well. So sometimes they might know words that mean the same thing, right, in both languages, but there are going to be words that are separate also.
A teacher reads to children in a circle time setting.
Yo me fui al acuario y yo vi un grandote octopus, un bebé.
Cuando fuiste al acuario, yes.
Dr. Sandhofer is heard and reappears on screen.
And so one of the things that's really important to keep in mind when you're teaching a dual language learner is that they are likely to have this vocabulary that you might not be aware of.
A preschool-aged child talks to two nearby adults while drawing.
¿Qué es eso? Las olas.
Las olas del mar.
Mira, Bética.
Mira. ¿Y qué fue esto?
Es la temperatura.
La temperatura. ¿Para medir la temperatura? Sí. ¿Con termómetro?
Como el de los pescados.
Dr. Espinosa reappears on screen.
Teachers of young dual language learners need to understand the process of dual language learning.
An adult watches as three preschool-aged children play at a small round table in a dramatic play area.
And in order to understand it, they have to have opportunities to both participate in professional development focused on dual language learners, as well as participate in professional learning communities with colleagues where they can reflect upon their practice.
A quick sequence of still photos shows adults engaged in professional development.
We offer dual language training to all of our teachers.
Elizabeth Crocker reappears on screen,
We know what we know, but there's no arrival point.
followed by a classroom scene of an adult with a child on their lap, while talking to another child standing next to them.
And we want to keep learning and keep growing and keep getting new ideas.
Mi papá también dibuja.
Sí. En egg.
Credits. Adapted with permission from the California Preschool Program Guidelines DVD series, a product of the California Department of Education, developed by West Ed. Copyright 2013. California Department of Education with West Ed. A special thanks to the programs and families without whose help this video series would not have been possible. The CDE logo appears in the lower left of the screen. The West Ed logo appears in the lower right.